Yo, how's it going, YouTube? So today I was thinking of doing a little video breakdown on how I did the song Wake Up by Spenny. So I posted this to my Instagram page and it really got a lot of love, so I thought maybe I'd show you guys how I did these in-camera transitions and how I sync them to the music, because doing the transitions is one thing and syncing audio to music is another, but having them both into one proved to be a little bit of a challenge, and I can go through and show you the few different takes that we took and show you why I used the ones that I used. So all we have to do is just jump into the computer and I can give you a rundown on how we did all the transitions.
Hey yo, check it out, Mike. Truth uncensored, ain't no masking it. Call him out while I see him, so don't let me catch you acting, bitch. Murdered the verbal and further murky inadequate. The catalyst for all of the happiness shit. I'm at the piff, don't let them catch you whiff. Get up and crack the whip, crashing on whack ass rats. Where the mattress is, Mac is this, rapping shit. Caught the cracking ass and tears, 95% of rat trash. I got the pass for it, with statements is accurate. Blinking this, I've been handing it. Your man in them feel they getting played like the mandolin. Get off the IG, put down the camera, then your cameraman is cramping all the angles that you're standing in.
Here's a project file in Premiere Pro. So it's kind of like 5 scenes, and each one is a transition from the last one to the next one. So what we had to do is just be cognizant of what we wanted to end with and when we wanted to end it. So we looked at the song and we saw there was like a few parts that kind of had a little break where there was no rapping and there was no performance. So we knew, oh, that's a perfect part to do a transition into. Then it was just as simple as coming up with the transitions that were kind of based on what we had for each scene here. So in the bed, I kind of just got the idea to throw the blanket over top of the camera, and then that will actually cue into the next scene. So he does that here, and then what we did was just go from inside the hoodie and have him just like rap his next line inside, like coming out of the hoodie, just like a fade to black. It's a pretty simple type of transition, but I really think for this it's very effective. Another thing that I did too was made sure I gave the clip a little speed ramp here, so that it could, so the full like I clipped it to where the full coverage was. These things are a little challenging. I recommend just getting a bunch of takes because you never know. We have that transition. That's just a simple black. So all you really need to do for a transition like that is just literally have something completely cover the frame. And once it covers the frame, you can cut it from somewhere else. And like I said before, like it's good to have the speed ramp to be able to transition. I would just say once he's done his line, or like done like saying his line or done mouthing the line, you can then start the speed ramp there. I wouldn't start it earlier just because it will look weird with it all being in sync and then all of a sudden not in sync. And then you can speed it up to as fast as you need and just cut the clip that makes the transition look smooth. The transition here, I made him actually, so this was easier to sync to music or sync the video, was after he was done his line, he just whipped the camera. And so the important part of this is to make it convincing by having the whip be right at the time that he's going to slap the camera out of the way. Now, this is kind of like a vlogging trick. I don't know. You see like vloggers do stuff like this, which is, it's just a pretty simple transition. You can just whip back into anything, and just as long as you're whipping the same way and you're kind of doing it from like a similar color. So here we whip into black, and then we transition out of black here as well. So that was pretty seamless. Like I don't even know where the cut is unless I really look for it. I just used manual focus and made sure to set this as my focus point before I did the whip transition, and also knew exactly where I was going to focus here. I had my aperture set a little wide so I could see, so I could have him in focus in his hand, but then still not too wide because I didn't want this stuff in the background to be as in focus. It's a pretty simple concept. You just got to really follow the motion and know where you're going. So it's important to have your plan. I can't stress that enough. You will not be able to do this kind of stuff unless you really have a solid plan in place. And even though our plan was just, we planned it the day of, we still knew exactly what we were shooting, when he was saying which lines, and what we needed to do to transition it from and to transition it after. So if you can plan your shoots to the point where you break it down into scenes, you have what transitions before and what transitions after, you should be able to get your whole video pretty seamless if you just have those three things in mind. But yeah, here we do this, we follow the action. We knew what we were going to do as a drop. So what I did here was actually add in a little transition to kind of give that motion blur and that effectiveness here. And that is just a simple drop in. Again, this one was really, really tough to get perfect. We knew that exact word that he was saying, and we had to make sure we got the bounce. Now, the way that we sort of cheated this one a little bit was knowing that he was going to bounce up and down, so I could kind of work it where I knew if I knew that he was doing that bounce, I could get a couple bounces in, and just as long as I had the down beats at the right moment, then I could make it work. And this transition here helps to make it work a little bit better. And he just slips into the downbeat and starts rapping again. Here was where we started to also run into a little bit of a time crunch. I had to go, so we had to make sure that we were getting the rest of these done. And this is the fourth scene in, so we knew we kind of had to speed it up a little bit here. And this transition, or this scene, is a little bit longer than what we would have normally liked. We would have had, because we have scene 1, 2, 3, 4 is very long, but we would have liked to cut that up into 2 before we had the next scene come in. But this one, he says a line about a mandolin, and then opens this box and goes into black. So here, this one was a little bit tough, really not as seamless as I'd like, but the idea is still there. But yeah, so we knew he was going to say mandolin, and that's when the transition would take place. So here what I did was I kind of once I cut his mouth out, I knew I could go into the mandolin, and he comes out with what he had was his phone in front of it. A little Easter egg there to know that he was actually transitioning from his the back of his phone, because the next line's about Instagram, so I thought it was fitting. Here, have a little heart that pops up. I just kind of imitated the animation that Instagram has. So when I got this shot, what I did was focus on his face now, through this whole thing. Again, aperture a little bit out because I knew I wanted to get most of his face in focus here. I also knew what he was going to be doing is grabbing the camera here and kind of shakes it around, and I knew it was going to be okay if it was blurry. You still knew it was his face, and you kind of knew what he was doing. The whole line is about your cameraman, so there. And then all he does is just throw it to the ground. Where I cut it to a new scene, I just sort of held it at the bottom. Sorry, I've lost these things here, so I'm just going to erase them. So I held it near the floor, and then we just waited to get to the next scene. I wasn't too concerned about him being in focus here because I knew this was what I was going to do, was add like a little broken glass thing and, a few like grain overlays. Yeah, so we just kind of pointed it down, and here, if you look, this is the music track that we were using. There's actually more music here, but I knew I was just going to end it there, so we made sure that we had it right to where we wanted to end it. And then to do that in post was I just cut out the space in between. So right here, if you see, we have it going to the ground, and then he lifts it back up. But I was able to cut out the space and speed up what I needed to, so I was able to speed up the fall, because he obviously didn't drop my camera for real. And then I just knew where to pick it up, and I think it's right about here where I could kind of get away with picking it up. So that space in between was cut out. And yeah, pretty simple. Yeah, then we just cut to the camera audio, where I just put an equalizer on it to kind of make it sound like a radio or whatever, like take out the highs and the lows. And that kind of gave it more of an old-timey broken radio effect thing. Yeah, and that's all I did for the transitions here. And like I said before, it really just comes down to planning. Plan your transition before and your transition after. And make sure you know what you're shooting in that scene, and just follow the action. So you set your focus points, you make sure that you know the choreography, and you do it. You test it out a couple times, and then you hit record. You don't have to spend all this memory card space just recording over and over and over again. If you can fake as much as you can, rehearse it, choreograph it, make sure you know what you're shooting, the transition in, the transition out, and you're good. You're golden. You have the whole thing. I recommend playing the song with it so you can lip sync at the same time, and you just make sure you got your plan. So that's it. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you got some value out of this. Please comment below some of your ideas and how you use these in-camera transitions in your music videos. Also, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.